Morning, students. This is day 4 in the continuation of the Ruling the Countryside chapter, History chapter number 3. Today we are going to cover the last two topic of this chapter, the Blue Rebellion, and the second one is the Indigo Commission, right? But before covering these two topics, let us recapitalize the chapter in a quick manner. Students, in this particular chapter, from the day 1, we studied about the methods of revenue settlements adopted by the Britishers to charge the revenue from the farmers. And we also came to know that all the three methods were proved a great failure for the Britishers to charge the revenue. Then they shifted their mind from charging the revenue from the farmers to forcing them to grow the cash crops instead of food crops. You remember I told you food crops were the crops which farmers were supposed to grow in order to have their own consumption and for the demand of the domestic market, but they were not supposed to forward it to the other countries. But in the cash crops, they were forced by the Britishers to grow the crops like jute, cotton, tea, indigo for the commercial purposes, and they were supposed to hand over it to the merchants and or the planters, and planters were forwarding this to the Britishers, and ultimately in between they were gaining the profits. Then students, we also came to know about the indigo, how the indigo became very famous in the temperate countries, and it was the plant of the tropical countries, and especially it was grown in India, and its quality as well as its color was very rich, and as compared to the wood which was produced in the Britain, it was very rich in blue color. So all the cloth dyers of India as well as of the Britain, they started demanding for the Indian indigo, and in this way the Britishers converted or changed their interest from the revenue collection to the growth of the indigo, and for that purpose they came up with the idea of adopting two methods of the indigo cultivation. First was the niche cultivation and second was the rayoti cultivation, which we covered in our previous classes. And we also came to know that what were the drawbacks of the niche cultivation and what were the drawbacks of the rayoti system, right? So from these two methods we came to know that the farmers now observed that through the niche or the rayoti system they were losing their lands, because the land on which the indigo they were growing, next year the particular land became totally infertile, and on this particular part of land on which the indigo was grown earlier before 1 year, on this particular land after 1 year even they could not sow the rice cultivation, even they could not grow the rice as well. And in the next year, apart from this size, out of the leftover land size, again they were forced to grow the indigo on the 25%, and rest they were using for the rice cultivation. And in this way each and every year their land size was decreasing, and their land was becoming infertile even to grow the rice for their own survival. So students, today in the continuation of the anger of the farmers, we will study about the Blue Rebellion. See, as the name itself indicating, it is telling us about the indigo, something which is related to the indigo, as indigo was blue in color. So after the farmers came to know that their land size was decreasing year by year, so They refused to grow the indigo further on their lands, and this refusal was known as Blue Rebellion, and it happened in the year of 1859 in Indian history. And this was the uprising of the farmers. This was uprising of the farmers against indigo cultivation. Right? In this, what they did, they started refusing to the planters. They started beating them. In order to save this, the planters used to send the Gomasthas. Now, what is the meaning of Gomasthas? Gomasthas were the agents sent by the planters to collect the rent from the farmers. So they were the agents of the planters, and on behalf of the planters, they used to come to the farmers to collect the rent, and farmers also started beating them on behalf of the planters. Firstly, they started beating the planters. They started refusing. Refusing the orders of the planters, and they also started beating the Gomasthas, and even the women took part in this rebellion. Even the women took part in this rebellion, and whatsoever the women could do at that time, they did. I mean, they lifted up their kitchen appliances, kitchen implements, whatever the pot was there, whatever the pans were there, right? So they started beating the planters and the Gomasthas, the women. They also took part in this rebellion, and they started beating the Gomasthas and the planters with their kitchen implements. And the best part of the Blue Rebellion was even the zamindars and village headmen, they also supported this rebellion, and they also raised their voice and they supported the farmers, because both the zamindars and the village headmen, they were unhappy with the rising powers of the planters. Right? Again, I'm repeating, even the zamindars and the village headmen, they supported the farmers, the cultivators, against the planters, because they could not see the rising unfair powers of the planters, and they also, zamindars and village headmen, they also supported the farmers again in this Blue Rebellion. Right? Now, what happened ultimately in 1859? The particular rebellion started, and the Britishers just experienced the aftermath of the 1857 revolt. Students, this revolt was very much famous in Indian history, and regarding this particular revolt, in the later chapter, I will tell you in detail. Only you understand right now that this particular revolt happened before 1859, and Britishers were worried after having this particular revolt, and after having the negative effects of the particular revolt. It was in the favor of the Indians. This revolt was in the favor of the Indians, and up to some extent the Indians were able to win in this particular revolt, and they were able to threaten the Britishers to get away from India. So after having this particular revolt, the Britishers could not bear the after circumstances of the Blue Rebellion, and they were afraid that after the 1857 revolt, if 1859, if they again will bear the consequences of the Blue Rebellion, then this will be very much prove negative for the Britishers. So in order to avoid this situation, they took the help from the Britishers took the help from the police and the army to suppress means to calm, to cool down the revolt, to stop the particular revolt. So students, what we have did in this, the Blue Rebellion, it came in 1859. In this, the farmers refused to grow the indigo on their fields and they started beating planters as well as the Gomasthas. Gomasthas were the agents of the planters and they used to collect the rent on behalf of the planters from the farmers. Right? In this particular rebellion, women also took part and whatever they could do at that time they did. Then in this particular rebellion, the zamindars and village headmen also supported the farmers because they were not happy with the rising powers of the planters. Then Britishers were worried after just having the 1857 revolt and they were threatened by the Indian powers, so they did not want to bear any other rebellion after the 1857 revolt. So in order to suppress, in order to cool down the situation, in order to take the control over the situation, they took the help of the police and the army to suppress the revolt, right? Meanwhile, in 1860, looking at the after effects of the Blue Rebellion, looking at the after effects and the uprising of the farmers for this particular rebellion, it was required to set up a Indigo Commission in 1860. The commission was appointed specifically to look into the matter of the indigo plantation and the relationship of Britishers with the farmers. According to the Indigo Commission, what was taken the decision? What were the decisions taken by the Indigo Commission? First of all, what was the purpose of Indigo Commission? The purpose of Indigo Commission was to inquire into the Indigo Commission's indigo plantation system, and its purpose was to make those punished who were using the unfair means. So Indigo Commission inquired the indigo system and it reached to the following decision. First of all, in this, the planters were held responsible for the exploitation of the farmers. It was also observed that the planters were using the unfair means in order to pressurize the farmers to grow the indigo. Then ultimately the Indigo Commission came to the conclusion that the planters cannot force the farmers to grow the indigo on their fields. Planters cannot force the farmers to grow indigo on their fields. And moreover, the Indigo Commission also came to the conclusion that it was not at all profitable for the riots. So Indigo Commission ordered to the planters not to make any further contracts with the riots to grow the indigo, and they cannot force the planters or they cannot force the farmers or the riots to grow the indigo. So Indigo Commission suggested to the riots also not to sign any contract with the planters. So this was the decision taken by the Indigo Commission in 1860, and these were the decision. It inquired into the indigo system, held the planters responsible for using the unfair practices for growing the indigo over the Indian farmers, and Indigo Commission suggested to the farmers or the riots not to sign any contract with the planters for growing the indigo in India. So students, this was all about the chapter of ruling the countryside. I hope all the methods of the revenue settlements, I hope all the methods of the indigo cultivation, and ultimately the Blue Rebellion, and the last is the Indigo Commission, why it was appointed, and what decisions it took at that time. I hope all the things are clear to you, right? So we will be starting our next chapter in our next class. Till then, take care. Bye.